Hello herro friends, it's Meg, and today I want to share with you guys how I set up my new iPad Air. Now initially I was going to shoot an unboxing video, but the footage for that turned out to be so I decided instead of doing a subpar video where I unbox the product, I will instead show you guys how I set up my iPad for maximum productivity and also share some tips on how you can make your iPad setup aesthetic. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned and we'll get started. Alrighty, so this is a new angle, but first of all, I want to introduce some of the accessories I have on my iPad. First of all, I have a protective case on the iPad itself. This case is from ESR, and it's just like a black magnetic tri-fold case, which, you know, it mimics the Apple Folio case, but it's much more sturdy, and it has like a back protection like case thingy on it, which is very helpful in my opinion to reduce scratches on the iPad itself. So I'm very happy with it, and it has a magnetic clasp that keeps the Apple Pencil in place when it doesn't have a skin on it. When it has a skin on it, it doesn't close quite properly. It does close, but it's very weak, so any kind of minor bump will open it. But it's doing its job well, and I couldn't really ask for a better case. Now on the screen side of the iPad, I have a paper-like protector on the screen. This is from Elecom. If you're someone who writes a lot on their iPad, I highly recommend you get a paper-like screen protector. There's a bunch on Amazon, and there's also the company Paperlike that you can get paper-like screen protectors from. What's so good about it is that it makes your iPad screen mimic the texture of actual paper, and so when you're writing on it with your Apple Pencil, it feels much more natural. It's also anti-glare, which I find really helpful because if I'm working in somewhere with a lot of bright lights or in the sunlight, it prevents the, you know, like glare that bright lights have on screens, which is very nice. I just find it easier on the eyes as well. It also prevents your Apple Pencil from slipping, which was something I had a big issue with when I first started taking notes with my iPad, was that whenever I would write on it, it just felt like I was writing on glass, which you are, and it just didn't feel really natural to me, and it like tired out my hand a lot more because I had to like be more precise about how I, you know, put my strokes in and stuff like that. So if you're someone who writes a lot, again, on the iPad, then I highly recommend that you get a paper-like screen protector. This, in my opinion, is essential. Now for the Apple Pencil itself, I have a case on it from Ilago. This just makes the pencil look like a real pencil, like a retro, you know, like old school pencil, which I'm a really big fan of. And you can still use double tap on it, which I find really helpful. And it just helps with the grip of the pencil because I just find that the naked Apple Pencil is kind of uncomfortable to hold. It's better than the first generation one, but it's still kind of, you know, like it slips. And so it's nice to have like this kind of silicone grip on it. And it's also good because it protects your Apple Pencil from, you know, when it falls and stuff like that, it's not gonna break as easily. So I recommend the case. But the one downside I have with the Apple Pencil case that I have on is that it doesn't allow the case to close completely, which I showed earlier. So that's the one downside I have with it. But you know, like I'm just trying stuff out, and if it really becomes a bother, then I might change the case that it comes in. But for now, I'm not carrying it around that much, so it's not a big issue. So now that we covered some of the accessories I have on the iPad, let's dive into what's on my iPad. Hello. This is my iPad Air. You're seeing it from above. I have a wallpaper that says, "Be the person you want to be." Let's get started. So instead of me going through the widgets and everything, which is more of an aesthetic thing, I want to start by introducing to you some of the apps that I use. So let's start with the dashboard. The dashboard is my Notion page. Instead of having the Notion app, which, you know, takes me to whatever page I opened most recently, I have a shortcut that takes me to the dashboard because that's the page that I use the most. It has my navigation to my wish list, to my ideas page, my finances, my goals. I also have a page for social media, all that kind of jazz. If you want to see a full in-depth tutorial or introduction to my Notion setup, then let me know down in the comments below. When we go back to the home page, the next app that we have is GoodNotes. GoodNotes is my app of choice when it comes to taking notes in class. It's the best app in my opinion for taking notes in class because it allows you to make notebooks instead of just documents. I'll introduce Notability in a second, but Notability doesn't allow you to make notebooks. It allows you to make separate documents, and some people like making, separate notes for each lecture, but for me, I like to have it on one continuous, notebook style. So I personally prefer using GoodNotes for class notes. All right, back to home. So Notability is the other app I was talking about. This is my mind dump for video ideas. Currently, I only have content creation because this is a new iPad and I don't have any documents on it, but this is my app of choice when it comes to annotating documents or doing my homework because it allows you to create one document for, like doing your homework and stuff like that instead of a notebook. And so I like to separate the usage of the two. These are both paid apps, and so, you might want to choose between one or the other. There's a bunch of videos comparing the two, so find the one that works best for you, but I personally like to use both and for different purposes. The next thing I have is Dropbox. This is my app of choice when it comes to backing up all of my content. I have basically my whole life on Dropbox. I have a paid plan of 2 terabytes, I believe, and so I'm not about to fill up the storage. I recommend if you don't have anywhere that you consolidate your documents or have a backup of everything, I recommend you have an app like that. It could be iCloud, it could be Google Drive. I personally use Dropbox because my family uses Dropbox and it's just easier to transfer files between each other, but do your research, figure out what apps work best for you. The next tab I have is the security tab. I'm not going to touch it because it's security and y'all don't need to know about my security stuff. The next app I have is Flat Tomato. This is a Pomodoro app that I use. I recently found it actually with this new iPad and I've been loving it. You can start the timer and it starts a Pomodoro, and you can specify what kind of thing you're doing. If you're working, if you're doing your daily tasks, if you're studying or reading. You can also add new categories, so it's very cool. And you can also skip to the next period, which is like the break, and I really like that it has really bold colors and it changes every time you tap on it or like you finish a time set. And so it's really cool, it's really cute, I love it. It helps me stay on track of work. If you're into Pomodoro, I highly recommend this app. Next up, we have the Arts shortcut. This opens Procreate and Pinterest side by side to each other because a lot of times I use Pinterest to get some kind of reference photo or inspiration, and I draw in Procreate. So this is a great shortcut for me to just open and get started with my art. The Devotions tab does a similar thing to the Art shortcut, but this one opens up the Bible app on the left side and it opens up GoodNotes on the right side because I have my Devotions notebook on GoodNotes. So this overall page is set up for productivity, and I want to go through some of the widgets to show you how I maximize the space that I have to make sure that I stay on top of my tasks. I have the clock on the top left corner, which allows me to keep track of the time better. I know it's up here as well, but it's a little bit small, and as someone who loses track of time very easily, it's really nice to have a big clock right in front of my face. So I have that. I'll show you guys how to create it in a minute, but I just want to go through everything first. And here I have my calendar. This is Google Calendar. This one is the world clock. I have the time for Tokyo, Tel Aviv, Paris, and Boston. Tokyo and Tel Aviv, obviously, because those are the two places that I live. And Paris, my best friend lives there. And Boston, I just happen to like Boston, and I needed a fourth clock, so that's why Boston is says there, but it could be really anything. Next up, we have the battery indicator. This is very neat for me to see visually how much battery I have on my Apple Pencil, my iPad itself. Next up, we have the weathers app. This is just nice to be able to check what kind of weather it is out there. Next up, we have this quote. I actually want to make this widget the Pinterest widget and have it circulate through my vision board every hour, but right now Pinterest is having some issues with their widget feature, and so I just used Widgetsmith to create a static image widget. Over here we have my to-do list. My to-do list app of choice right now is Todoist. I'm testing it out, and the rest are the apps that I showed you just now. And the reason that these apps are there is because A, they are the apps that I use the most, and B, they're there because they are the apps that help me stay productive the most. Now to go over some of the apps on the dock. I have Safari for my browser. The music app, obviously everybody knows I'm an Apple Music user, not a Spotify user. I know, don't come for me. Photos app because I use it quite frequently. The Notes app, Files, and Gmail, which is my app of choice for emails. I have that on there. The settings, which I use quite frequently, especially while I was setting up the iPad. It was something that I used constantly, so it's there. And the Shortcuts app because I want to be able to access the Shortcuts app as soon as I come up with any kind of shortcut idea. It's kind of like a capture tool for me, I guess. Okay, so going into detail about the widgets here. These widgets I made using Widgetsmith, which is this app right here. Widgetsmith allows you to create custom widgets, small ones, medium ones, large ones, and extra large ones that, you know, you can put a picture like this one, or you can put a quote in like this one. You can do, you know, the day or the time. I believe you can also show like a countdown as well. It's very cool. So I highly recommend if you're into making your iPad aesthetic. Now let's go to the second page. So I actually only have 2 pages on my iPad setup. I have this quote here that says work deeply and relax deeply, which is inspired by Rowena on YouTube. I found that it's really important for me to work deeply, but it's also really important for me to relax deeply. And I have a really hard time allowing myself to relax. So I wanted to put this quote right on this page where, you know, I have my entertainment stuff to remind myself that when I'm, you know, enjoying things like entertainment, it's okay to like enjoy it deeply, because allowing myself to relax deeply is the only way I can sustainably work deeply. I have the Kindle app, Netflix, Disney Plus, Genshin Impact, which is a game that I play on my home PC, but because when I'm in Israel I don't have access to it, I like to play on the iPad, so this app is here. It takes up quite a bit of storage, especially on my 64 gigabyte iPad. It's a lot of storage, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. I have the YouTube app as well, YouTube Studio, Procreate. I have it on here as well, even though I have access to it in this art shortcut. If I just want to open Procreate, it's on this second page if I need it. And I also have Canva on here because Canva is the app that I use for when I'm creating thumbnails and stuff like that. So it just makes transferring of files easier when I have Canva on my iPad. But yeah, that's it for my iPad setup. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful to you, and I hope that you found my setup aesthetic as well. I know it's up to personal preference, but you know, it really makes me happy, so I wanted to share it. And I really wanted to share the app Widgetsmith with you guys because I didn't know it existed with my previous iPad, and I just feel like my setup has gone up by like a lot, and it just makes me so happy to see my iPad setup. So I just hope that you're able to find the same joy that I find in my iPad setup in your own iPad setup. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, leave a like and consider subscribing if you like content like this or are interested in seeing my face again. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!